everybody. Welcome. My name is Mike Abrams. I'm going to be moderating this wonderful panel today. But before we get started, a couple housekeeping items. If you have cell phones, laptops, just please make sure they're silenced. We will have a few performances, then we'll have a moderated Q&A, and then we'll have time for audience questions at the end. I will let you know, but there are 2 mics on each side. So at that time, if you have questions for our amazing panelists, we will allow you to jump up and ask questions then. So Kimberly Akimbo is a Broadway musical currently playing at the Booth Theater here in New York City. The show tells the story of a lonely teenage girl named Kimberly Akimbo who suffers from a condition that causes her to age rapidly, thereby giving her the appearance of an elderly woman. She's forced to maneuver family secrets, borderline personalities, possible felony charges, and a bunch more as Kim is determined to find happiness in a world where not even time is on her side. So we're going to kick things off first with Justin Cooley, who's going to perform Good Kid. Justin is making his Broadway debut in this show. So Justin plays Seth, and this is, without giving spoilers, this is a moment where he's kind of in a very tough predicament with Kimberly's aunt, where you're accompanying a crime, and this is the song you perform there. So, welcome.
My brother played with nunchucks. I liked playing chess. My brother broke the knickknacks. I would clean the mess. I ate my peas and carrots, my brother never would. And as my mother died, I promised to be good. The good kid, the good boy, the good one. The bookworm, the Boy Scout, the good son. What has it got in me? Being good, what has it got in me? My father smokes in silence and paces in the yard. My brother goes to rehab. I study twice as hard. The good kid, the good boy, the good one. The unseen, the unheard. The good son, what has it got in me? Being good. Maybe a little bad, could do a lot of good. Consider Frodo Baggins, consider Robin Hood. The good kid, the good boy, the good one. The wrong thing, the right choice in the long run. What has it got in me? Being good. What has it got in me? Being good. Being good.
All right. Up next, we're going to have Ali Mozzie, who plays Kimberly's mom, Patty. She is pregnant, and she is singing the song Father Time to her unborn child. So welcome, Ali.
Father Time, slow down the day. Don't let the dark come and steal it away. For goodness sake, we're still awake. And baby wants to play. Father Time, hold back the night. Please let the sun stay and we'll be alright. Tell the man in the moon it's much too soon to be turning out the light. Baby's eyes are heavy now. Baby's breath is deep. Mommy wants to baby her. Baby wants to sleep. Father Time, are you there? Maybe tomorrow you'll have time to spare. So I pray for another day. Baby's eyes are heavy now. Baby's breath is deep. Mommy wants to baby her. Baby wants to sleep. Father Time, are you there? Maybe tomorrow you'll have time to spare. And so I pray for another day. Father, hear my prayer. Father, hear my prayer. Father, hear my prayer.
Thank you, everybody. Please welcome to the stage the cast and the creative of Kimberly Akimbo. We have Jessica Stone, David Lindsay Bear, Janine Sistori, and then Allie and Justin, who you all got to hear perform. David, let's kick things off with you. This musical was originally a play that is older than Kimberly performs. Or the age of Kimberly in the show. So talk us through a little bit about the original concept, the original idea, how you kind of came up with the original story that became a play initially.
Well, the very first seed of the play came when I asked a friend how his new baby niece was. And he said, oh, she's amazing. She's like this wise old woman trapped in a baby's body. And I thought, well, that's sort of a weird thing to say. And then I thought, oh, but what a great idea for a character. The baby in my head then became a teenager. And I worked with an actress named Mary Louise Burke, who is an older actress who had been in many of my plays, and I wanted to write a part for her. So the idea of Mary Louise Burke being a 16-year-old girl was the seed of it. And then I wrote it, and of course, Vicki Clark is playing it now, but that was the early days of it.
So then, Janine, I think you are the one that kind of decided, hey, should be a musical. How did that come to life where you decided to revisit something from the past to bring it to life today?
Well, David and I had written a show before. We wrote Shrek and met writing Shrek together, and we wanted to do something. Thank you. My mom. And so thank you for that pity laugh. We wanted to write something else, and we met in, David has this incredible office. It's no match for that Google cafeteria, but it's an incredible, I'm coming back tomorrow. So we were talking about it, and I said, well, how about one of your plays? I love this play, and we talked about it, and he told me that story, and I think it's interesting. I think a lot of babies go through, like, they're all, when they're born, so many of them look like Khrushchev, and I think it's just like the idea of, I don't know where that came. The idea of old and young, about how we feel who we were and who maybe we're going to be, I think is so, it's such a deep and funny way of looking at life, and that's David. So I knew that it would sing, and it's wonderful to be able to write it with the playwright.
So I want to hear a little bit from all of you about the differences between making a musical, making something from scratch, and converting something that has existed but is going to be in a new form. How does that process differ? What was it like in this particular show?
Well, it's incredibly different, actually. It was interesting revisiting something that had been a play because I knew the material and the characters and the story obviously really well. But then examining it 20 years after I had written it, I had changed as a person. My craft, I hope, had improved. But also the storytelling is a completely different thing. In a play, characters had to tell whatever was going on inside, underneath the dialogue through subtext. And so you needed really good actors to do that, and we had that. But in a musical, we could just crack those hearts open and let them sing. And so suddenly we had this whole new toolbox that as a playwright I don't usually have. And so it allowed us to go actually deeper into the characters and tell the story in a completely different way than the play. So even though the bones of the play are still there, it's a completely different animal.
And Jessica, you came involved a little bit later, but you've worked with them in the past. How did you, when you first were introduced to the idea of this musical, what was your interpretation and what you were going to bring to this production?
Well, I first heard about it. David and I were having breakfast I was directing another play of his, and we were, it just came up that he was working on this musical adaptation of Kimberly Akimbo. And I never imagined that I would be connected to it, but I remember it hitting me like a bolt of lightning. Just, oh my God, that's such a great idea. And that play really sings. And, I love that play. And so that was the first I'd heard of it and thought it was a great idea. And to answer your previous, or to add to their answers for the previous question, one of the things that's really useful and a delight when working on something that's an adaptation of this existing material is having the playwright in the room and being able to, as a resource, turning and saying, so what did you mean then? What do you want now? What is this? There's something really useful to have the origin there.
It's nice to hear. Most people don't want the writers in the room, actually. Thanks. Get out. Too many opinions.
Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Of course. Justin and Allie, we'll love to hear from you because this was originally in the Atlantic and it then comes to Broadway. So what was that transition for you all like as performers, having seen it, had great reviews and sold out shows and critically acclaimed, and then moving it to Broadway into the new theater, new space?
It was definitely exciting. Of course, we had a lot of time though. We sat with it for about 8 months before going back to rehearsal for Broadway. So in ways it was scary because you kind of have all that adrenaline and hype from the initial run, and then you go and you sit with your character just kind of at the back of your mind. And then we come back and then there's so much new things you want to do, old things you need to revisit and maintain, and things you want to explore and deepen. So it was definitely something we all, as a team, had to kind of check back and said, like, where do we want to go? What was so beautiful that we did before? And always make sure to maintain, like, the heart of our show, I think, because we were moving to Broadway and obviously many more people were going to see it. But I think we all knew and understood it would be very important to keep kind of what made it special the first time and have faith in that. So
I think as a vibe in general, like I had this awareness at the Atlantic. I was like, oh, this is a sweet spot. There's not too much pressure right now. All the actors were sharing a dressing room, like it was like just cute and adorable. And this show did very well off Broadway. And I was like, I don't know if it's going to feel like this as when things grow and get bigger, But I will say going into the rehearsal process, the creative process stayed the same. In terms of it was I never felt any, okay, we're getting bigger now and we got to be better. I never felt anything like that. We were just reiterating what Justin said, we were just working with what we have and enhancing things here or there. But the heart of it was always the same no matter how big it got.
So it's interesting you say like the process is generally the same, but how does it differ, especially from maybe the creative team, when you're going from that off-Broadway to Broadway? How much adjustments do you have to make in that situation, especially knowing that you have a very successful show that is selling out and people are going to, and now bringing it to a Broadway house?
Well, I'll let you talk about the physical production, but for the writers, and Jess was very much involved with us, it was terrifying in one way because the show had done so well, we didn't want to break it. At the same time, we didn't know what the play was until it was in front of an audience. And after the show opened at the Atlantic, it was like, well, you're done. But then we realized, but this could be sharper and this could be clearer and maybe the character could have more agency here. And so bringing it to Broadway, then we had the chance to make all those adjustments. And if there was a song that was a B+, could we get it to an A-? Let's try it. And so everybody just got brave and buckled down and knew that we had what we had, and so we could always go back. But it gave us the privilege to go ahead and make those little changes.
Yeah, you don't always get the opportunity to go back and fix and fuss and improve, and so it felt like a luxury. I mean, there's always the anxiety that we're going to break it, and that we'll somehow lose the kernel of what made it so sweet and wonderful for all of us. But I feel like we all had the same goal. We kept just going back to the story. We kept going back to character. We kept going back to our main sort of themes, and we're always answering to those. And so in writing and even in terms of the physical production, I thought, if it's so sweet in this tiny space, what does it mean to be in a bigger space? And for me personally, some of the stuff we couldn't get at the Atlantic was the sense of expansion and contraction, that she could feel trapped and then break out, that there was inertia and she was trapped, and then there was suddenly opportunity. And so physically, we were actually able to do that when we moved. It felt like there was breathing room to do it, as opposed to the Atlantic where there was no fly space, no traps, no wings, nothing. We had no tricks at all up our sleeve.
Amazing. By quick round of applause or show of hands, who's seen the show? I think we have a good amount. Yeah. Amazing. So I do want to get into a little bit about the show. I do think, without maybe giving too much spoilers, everyone who is going to go see this and hopefully go see the show in New York, there's one thing that I think is beautiful about the show is this balance between serious and kind of trauma and the family drama, and then the humor mixed in. And so I'd love to hear from each of you. How do you write music for that? How do you kind of write that in? How do you direct that? How do you perform that? Like, what is that balance of keeping the crowd entertained and laughing in a serious topic at moments?
I'm from Long Island. David's a Southie. So when people say, like, I don't know people like that, it's like, y'all have to come to my house. I mean, we around the dinner table, especially, holidays were the time when, the turkey would fly, right? So it's like an Italian household, nothing is held back, and things, you have a little Chianti and it gets even bigger. And there are people who, are everybody has an Aunt Deborah. We have 4. And and they're like truth tellers, and things happen around the table. And I think that every family is a theatrical production in one way. So, and the humor and people who don't like the thing that I love about David's work is that he's brought people to sing in musical theater. Sometimes musical theater can get very choosy about who gets to sing, and it drives me nuts. It's like, I want the people I grew up with to be down center stage. I want them to shine a light on the people who don't really get honored in the musical theater tradition. It gets a little high. And I like, the concept for me is really high in that you only have this life. And we don't want to think about it too much, but you have to think about it. It's temporary, it's ephemera. And so that's like a high idea. The low idea is around the dinner table. Like what's going to happen and all of the felonies and all of those things that every family has. We have 4 felonies
Not every
in our
family. Our family.
All right, maybe it's just Long Island, but so I think like the variety for me is like, I remember reading about Diana Vreeland and her idea that the eye has to travel in a musical, the ear has to travel. Mm-hmm. And the hard thing, and after the Atlantic, we all sat down, we went back to David's office, read the play again. It's going back to the source with a beginner's mind to say, if you're going to choose it, re-choose it. If it's not good enough, cut it. That's why I love like watching Project Runway, because rural juror, because it's like people making things, and a musical is an American invention, and it gets made by being remade and rechosen. So the hijinks pursue have to also follow along with music, so that the road is very wide.
I'll just jump in to say that we're not really trying to do it so much. We just sort of know what the sensibility of it is. I grew up very working class, and really horrible things happened to my family and friends and my neighbors. And things were so horrible that we would laugh, that was often the coping mechanism. And so every play that I've written, tragedy and comedy, they just live right next to each other. I'm not trying to do it. It's just something is so sad that it's funny, or so funny that it's a little bit sad. And Janine understood that, and Jessica understood that, and our actors understand that. And so everybody in the show just knows what that sensibility is, and we don't have to worry. Is this too sad? Is this too funny? They're just, it's there at the same time.
From the acting side, I think there's, we were talking about it a little bit before, there's moments where it's almost hard not to break because it is so funny, but it's also very serious moments too. And what is that, in a 2.5 hour show, the ups and downs of that on stage? What is that like for you to do 8 times a week?
I mean, here's the deal. After the show, I go home and go to bed right away. I'm tired. But I remember when I first read the musical and then got to do it in front of an audience, and I feel like I even go on the up and down ride that I hoped the audience would also be going along with us, and it's in a really positive way. Emotionally fatiguing a little bit, but as an actor, I feel like so much of it is for me is in the writing. I just have to commit to it. So it's not my job to be like, is this funny or not? Like David wrote it. I just have to kind of, commit to it. And Janine wrote it. Although one time, Janine, we were working on Inevitable Turn at the dinner scene, and we talk over each other like, it doesn't matter. The words don't matter right here. And you were like, wait, what? I was like, so we can say anything?
Right. I think it was definitely hard to get a hold of in a way, because it's so real. And as actors, I don't know, you feel like you get this character and you just want to like chase things that you feel that they're feeling, and like sometimes you almost want to like wallow in their sadness just to like feel it out and see and dig deeper in ways. And you can do all of that, but then when it comes back to the scene and to the play and to the present moment, it's like David said, it's just life, and it's the tragedy and comedy that we all experience every day. And so I think that's what's really fun about it, is that it's really just rooted in reality, and it's a dynamic feeling to like do it every day. I think like we find new places to laugh and new places to cry every day. And that's fun, as it is fatiguing. It's also very fun.
I find a great relief in the writing too. Like, I don't curse as much as Patty does, but I get to benefit from his family history, that I get to show up and curse like a sailor, and it feels great.
I've always wanted to like walk into my school hallway and like speak Elvish, but like I've never done that because like, you know, I'm a little bit afraid. But now I get to do it on stage for like thousands of people, and it's cathartic, truthfully.
Yeah, it's not as cathartic in real life.
So I would love to continue a little bit about your characters, because you both come in with huge punchlines early on of like very humorous moments for each of your characters. And then you kind of follow this journey as mother and, really the friend of Kimberly, the kind of the main character. So how much are you thinking about the other aspects of like the character's life and persona as you kind of live these scenes and these moments interacting with the relationships you're playing on stage? Like is Elvish part of like, you have to bring that part into your life. Like that is the character. Like how much do you think about you embodying Seth and Patty to play off the different relationships you play with your friends and Kimberly and, all the other different characters?
Okay. I think, I think like, I feel like I worked on this a lot with you. There is a lot there in like text that is so rich as like this show, and you do want to think about all of it. But at the end of the day, I think like I, as an actor, just make this slight adjustment like into being this kid who is like at the skate rink. And I mean, there's a ton of stuff with his family, and there's a lot with how he sees Kim, but I think in the moment, there isn't really a lot of that. And I think that's what makes the show light and like breathable to be a part of and fun. I mean, at the end of the day, I just found a person I get to do anagrams with. And that's like an incredible feeling. You can replace the word anagrams. Like everyone has that. I have that. And so I think that's kind of how I align myself with Seth. It's like me making a friend, me going to work, all those sort of mundane things that are really rich in the reality of it, but it feels mundane, and that's what's beautiful.
Justin, this is his Broadway debut, but his New York debut. And we saw many, many people for this part, and he came in so special. And I was worried because he was just graduating from high school. And I wrote to his mother and was like, I know you thought you were going to drop him off at college, and now you're dropping him off in Midtown. And I feel so badly about that. And I have to say, there just along these on this topic for the first couple of weeks, that's a lot to be dropped into the deep end in that way. And he came up to me about 2 weeks into rehearsal, and he said he advocated for himself. He said, can we take a couple of hours and just talk and work on some stuff? Like I'm feeling a little bit stuck. I hope you don't mind that I'm telling this story.
I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Please save me.
Yeah. So we took some time. We went into, this other room and worked through the show together and just talked through everything. And he got a lot of stuff off of his chest and asked a ton of questions. And we just went through each scene. And I don't know if you remember this moment the way I do, but I just remember him looking at me, and it was like something went, and he was like, oh, I can just be me. And he said, I've been putting on this character. I've been playing this idea of what I thought this kid was. And I can just be me. And from that day on, I felt like everything dropped in. It like the whole role, the whole show just draped over him like this shimmery cloak. Like everything came together. I know, shimmery cloak. Anyway, but it's one of my favorite Justin stories because that takes guts to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. And can you take some time out of the day to, work on this with me? it takes a lot of bravery and a willingness to be open, and I'm just really proud of him.
Yeah.
I think along those lines, I think there's an interesting question. You have an amazing cast. And from a creative team perspective, how much do you have your story and you're looking for the right actor or actress? Or do you kind of build the character around who you've brought in? Or how do you kind of mix and match that, knowing you have these incredible performers to kind of work with?
It's sort of for me, it's a combo platter that you want to cast the person that you think is closest. And by the way, I knew that Justin was perfect on the first day. Because, do you remember what you said to me on the first day? All right, here we go. I'm going to tell you. He had read my Twitter bio, and he said, "Are you really an 8th level rogue with a +3 proficiency?" And then he talked about maybe putting a D&D campaign together, and I thought, all right, we have cast the right person. Yeah, I know, we're working on it. We're a little busy with the Broadway musical, but soon. But then once you cast those people, of course, they're in the room and they're informing everything. And so, I thought I knew who this character was. And then they'll take a left turn that you didn't expect or wasn't in the script. And then you start writing to that. Not totally throwing the script up in the air, but when you are tweaking lines and lyrics and little moments, that's all because of what the actor is bringing to it. And so they're the last cook in the kitchen putting the finishing touches.
And Allie, for you as playing the mom in kind of a very difficult circumstance, like I think along the same lines, how much do you, are you trying to bring of yourself into the character, and also how much is just the circumstance of the situation that Patty is kind of in the show?
Yeah, I don't envy. I know Patty comes off as all over the place and narcissistic, and she has all these ailments, and I know, but at the heart of it, I don't envy her lot in life right now. My biggest fear as a parent myself is losing a child before myself. So it's super heavy. I don't envy it. I was like, I don't know. I might act like Patty if that was my circumstance. I think we do, the way we cope in life sometimes can be weird, things we choose, But I do feel like, I do think in this circumstances, at least for me as an actor, it's helpful already being a mom, to kind of get that, like that's just already lives there. So when I'm singing Father Time, I there's just a lot already built in, But I've learned a lot too, and I've enjoyed the stories that personal stories have had in the rehearsal room. Like you can't live in that space 24/7, and that's where a lot of the humor comes in because we need the levity, right? So that's been kind of fun to figure out what that is in the show, and then remind myself of that in life too.
I want to hear from all of you. I think one fun thing when you have a show like this is, what's the one moment for you that's your favorite moment every time you see it, or favorite moment to perform it? Like, is there a spot, and I know this might be hard because it's like your child of trying to pick one part, but for someone who's going to see it for the first time or someone who's seen it a bunch, what's that moment for you that you're just like, that's the best part for me?
I need time with that. Well, it's also hard because we watch the whole thing from beginning to end, many, and have for many, 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 many shows. For these two, you're not necessarily watching every single moment. So that would be, you might have to come back to me for that. But I will say that one of the joys of watching it now is it's so many years. Every single moment have all these memories attached. So, and some of them are us sitting around a table at David's house. Some of them are me and Allie and Janine in a workshop, like torturing her over Father Time, and thank God she shook us off. But so every single moment it is just attached to years of memories. So it's very, very hard to pick a favorite. If I think of one, I'll let you know.
I actually, go Janine, go. Go.
Okay. Allie's a comic genius is also what I wanted to say. What she does is very. I mean, you play Glinda, and I think the character of Glinda in Wicked is interesting because it's so sharp. It's so sharp turns, and Allie has this ability to ground all the comedy in truth. So you can go really high because it's always grounded in that something true is going on. But one of my favorite moments, my favorite moments are, spoiler alert, so I don't want to say they're like an entrance that particularly breaks my heart. But one of my favorite things was we had this song called Zippies. Welcome to Zippies. How can I won't go on. But it was Seth's character, and he worked in a fast food restaurant because I was obsessed with meeting him through a microphone, because I'm so obsessed with, you go up to Dunkin' Donuts and now Starbucks, and there's a little speaker, right? And I love those little speakers. And I was obsessed with writing that. And so anyway, we cut that. But I decided, besides all the D&D, that he was in marching band and he played the sousaphone and it wouldn't leave me. And then one day I said to David, I'm writing a tuba solo for Seth here. And it goes like this. And that's my favorite moment that you didn't. It's in Good Kid. We cut it for the album because we didn't want to do that, and then we wanted a surprise. But that is my favorite moment when Seth plays his tuba.
If you haven't seen the show, you got something to look forward to.
My favorite moment is one without words, and it's a staging moment, actually. It's in the second act, and this is a spoiler, but it's a small one. All the teenagers have gathered in the library, and they're playing Uno, and there's a moment where they all talk about what they're going to do in the future and what their future lives are going to be and the jobs they're going to have and the weddings that they're going to have. And Vicky Clark, who plays Kimberly, is just in the middle of that little scrum of teenagers, and she doesn't say a word. You just see on her face that she's not going to have that life, that she's not going to have the future that these bright, shiny teenagers all have. And it's a weird moment. It's hard to do this in a theater where the staging functions like a close-up in a movie, but it's staged so beautifully that everybody is just looking at this one face in the circle of teenagers, and they know exactly what she's feeling. And anyway, I love that moment. So, thanks, Jess.
What about how just
Danny,
you? What
and
about
Danny.
from the performing side?
I was because I don't get to see everything, obviously, but I love the first family scene where we meet Patty and my husband Buddy and Kim for the first time. That's maybe the most fun I have all night, because the writing too. Sometimes the audience is laughing so hard, and we'll get off stage and we're like, "Man, what is this? Like King of Queens? We're like on a sitcom right now." Like that's what it feels like. But there's also just like a really great rhythm to that scene that I love. Just writing, it looks like it's like a roller coaster ride or something like that. It's just fun.
There's so many things that are so funny that I love watching backstage. But I'll do a moment I'm a part of from like I think something that's so fun. It's like a comedy and it's also tragic. And I think that it's so fun that we get to like hear the audience laugh and cry like at different points. And one of my scenes when I'm first meeting Kim, we sit down and we're starting working on our project, and Seth is a little what's the word? I don't know. He likes to say things that maybe don't come across the way that he wanted them to, but that's okay. And Kim gets that, and it's so fun to see the audience take the journey. Like I'm like, oh wow, like you look like an old lady. Like I thought you were a lunch lady. That's so crazy. And like people will be like, oh, or like what, or like, and sometimes they laugh, and sometimes they're like, what? And like I can feel them like try to get Seth as Kim is, and that's just so fun every night. Like it's so different and new every time.
I have a favorite line it actually was in the play. My favorite line is, "You look like Nana at her wake." And you guys, I laughed at that line when I read the play so hard. But I was like, is there something wrong with me? Because the audience always goes, "Oh."
David it's a father saying it to a daughter.
David almost cut it. I love that line so much. I think I have my favorite.
You ready?
All right. It's Seth and Kim are in the car at the end of the show. Is this? I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, no, you're spoiling it.
Pick another one.
But I love it. All right. There's a moment. I'll say this. Seth and Kim are together at one point towards the end of the show.
That way.
And there's a moment where you realize they're doing something great. And the audience, it's not dirty. Well, you're not letting me do it. This is okay.
I think it's good.
Yeah, they're doing something exciting. And
This is not the musical. Don't listen to her. This is not the show.
But here's what happens. But the thing
In the car.
I've had it. No. Okay. Anyway, at this moment, that's not the end of the show, and that's not dirty. The entire audience sighs. Everybody collectively goes, oh, and it's my favorite moment. It's my favorite moment.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Great way.
God.
So that is a great moment too. We're gonna open up to audience questions. We do have microphones on both sides. I'll ask one while people start to line up. I want to ask the thing that I think everybody who sees the show, I hope it's not a spoiler. How do they skate on stage?
No, we signed a contract.
Oh.
I did, didn't you?
Okay.
All you need to know
It's
is we are
online
actually
magic.
ice skating. Like some people are like, is it
They
little
are
wheels?
ice
It's
skating.
ice skates. Yes,
Okay.
we are ice
Literally
skating.
every night, the lights will come up and I'll be near. It's always an older couple, and the husband will turn to the wife and say, "There are little wheels on the blades. I can see them." And it's like, there aren't any wheels on the blades, sir.
And it is always the husband. It's always the husband.
Okay.
Thank you guys for coming today. First off, the show is amazing for anyone that hasn't seen it. Like truly, truly spectacular. So I was very amazed by it. But question for Ali and Justin, you guys are incredible in the show. Curious, since you are obviously doing 8 shows a week, this is like a big part of your life. Are you able to leave the character like in the theater, or do you see that character kind of like creeping into your personal life as you become like more and more ingrained in the show?
I think I've become more forward talking in my real life because of Patty. I can be a little bit more direct now. It might be a little bit more rude sounding, but I actually feel like it's nice to cut to the chase sometime, and I'm appreciative of getting to play Patty, for that reason. And then, when I leave the theater, I definitely am just like, okay, let's find other things to do that have nothing to do with this show so I can come back refreshed and start anew.
Are you cursing more?
When my kid's at school, I might curse more.
It absolutely does, I think, bleed into your personal life. I have, in the same way, started just like saying things like too like lunch lady adjacent like statements. People are like, Justin, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh shit. And they're like, definitely. I think we're living through that, and I think it's in a fun way. I don't know, like we find these characters at certain points in your life, and like in the way that you're still growing. Of course, if you're connected with like someone else, pretty much like you're gonna grow with them and kind of weave together. And I definitely think like he's a good part of my life right now as a person.
Thanks again. The show rocks.
Thank you so much for being here. I love the show so much. But one thing I found particularly delightful and creative is the ensemble of the 4 teenagers. And I wanted to ask a little bit about where that idea came from, what creative fun things you were allowed to do because of that choice.
Well, they're the main thing that are not in the play, actually. And so when Janine and I were talking about whether to expand the story and how to expand it, we came up. We wanted to look at Kim's school life and expand that area, and to have characters that would be a reflection of who she is, but also who she will never be. And so as a reflection, we didn't want like all the popular kids. And so we wanted this chorus of nerds and geeks. Also had easy access to those characters because I know them very well. They're all my friends essentially upstage. But also musically, and Janine can talk about that, it helped in that department too, right?
Yeah, you have to populate the stage so that when you expand something, like you literally have to make chords. You have to make a triad and in a quartet, and then the show choir idea eventually came from us going back and forth. And I loved the drama kids in high school. I wasn't one. I played lacrosse. Is it any mystery? I'm just like anything where I could club somebody. But I loved the drama kids, and I secretly played the piano, and no one knew that I had this life. I just didn't know how to apply it into real life. And they always seemed so like connected to something, in on some secret that the rest of us didn't have because we were clubbing people. And so I loved this idea that they weren't mean, that they weren't bullies, and we talked about our high schools, the life and the idea and the show choir, and they're still competitive, and the way that they all love each other, like that, the way to open it. But it was really important to make sure that the musical world of the show was full, so that it wasn't just a singular, trio or even a quartet with Aunt Deborah, that there are more people involved.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dan. I've seen the show a few times. And first, David and Jeanette, I just want to say that I recently played Farquaad in a production of Shrek, so thanks for writing that. I was a little shorter in the show. But one thing that I thought about this is post-Broadway, post a hopeful national tour, this show is going to be wildly successful in regional community theaters. I mean, every community theater has that older woman who is in every show and now gets to be the ingenue in a way. What are some things that you are hoping stay with the show as it starts getting done in all of these smaller venues across the country?
Well, just to jump in, I'm old. So I started in this business at 19 and I'm 61. And through that period, I grew up and came up with a lot of women who are now aged out of the business. Yeah. And one of the great things has been able to include women like that who were so sought after, and the business chews them up because, again, it's not stories that really get told about a grandmother or something. It's youth-based. So the idea that we could put something in the canon to honor all of those. I hadn't thought of that, and that is such a gift that you just said that it would do regions like that to honor. But for my friends who still are unbelievably talented, still in great voice, still can move, still can do those shows, it was one of the main things that I also attracted me so much, because David writes for older women very well.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you, Janine. Depends who you ask. Yeah, well, thanks. I'm a lot less old than Janine is, but I look much older. You look great. I don't. So I look like I'm 85. So that went off the rails. I apologize.
You're not that. I just want to say, it's not like I'm like this much older.
But to go to the point, God, I feel myself blushing terribly.
You are so turning.
I was like, this will be a funny joke. Oh, God. I know some Elvish that I could tell. This is terrible.
David,
do you have another question?
Are you okay? Because you're seriously turning red.
Look, okay. I'm going to get on track now. The good news is this won't be online anywhere. I've spent my entire career writing for older women in particular, because I just know so many wonderful actresses and older actresses, and most of the plays that I read growing up were for men. And so when I would start a play, I would say, does it matter if the character is a man or a woman? If it didn't matter, then I would just make it a woman. And so now I have all of these plays with older actresses, and nothing excites me more than going to see all these Kimberly Akimbo productions out in the regions with all these ladies that want to sing and be ingenues. That's it. Yeah, I know.
Hi. Thank you for coming. I saw this 2 weeks ago with my mom, and it was amazing. It's really cool to see how someone my age and her age was able to resonate with the same story so well. But I had a question just about the acting and creative process with chemistry. I know that Victoria's obviously a real adult, but playing a 16-year-old. So how did you guys kind of nail that dynamic so well of her acting like a teenager with Seth and the other high schoolers, of like the awkwardness in the hallways or the other kids not being able to understand her so well? You guys just really nailed her. Really, we believe that she's a teenager. So,
thank you. It's tricky. we worked a lot on sometimes when Vicky would sort of take a stab at something that's more youthful, it would actually get really, really young. And so she and I very quickly had this shorthand where I'd be like, okay, you're in like toddler land, you know? Teens don't usually like jump and bound. Like they tend to be stiller and more poker faced. So it took some careful calibrating over both rehearsal processes, actually. And it was tricky. It was also really important that we find teens that if they weren't exactly 16, that they were super close to it. Because if we're, asking the audience to believe that this older woman is 16, then we want to see the real thing surrounding her. So we worked really hard at finding people who, I think when we started, I know you were still a teenager.
I still am.
You still are. And Iskander.
You're 19 now.
You're 19?
Yeah.
And Iskander was
21.
18 or 19. They
She
were,
just turned 21.
yeah. So to answer your question, we had some real ones up there. And it took some work with Vicky to find when she's cool as a cucumber and when she's boisterous and how to sort of, set that dial. It helps that she's a genius.
And she's also really in charge of her, like she does a lot of body work. She has this thing called a T, an Alexander T. Have y'all seen that? Y'all, I don't know. I'm saying y'all. It's like I'm from northern Long Island. Y'all. She has a tea that anyway, in the car, she has it. But her voice box, what's happening? Her voice box is aging. And that's what was really tricky, was you could get someone who would belt and belt all night, because I know a lot of women can do that into their 90s. But her voice is aging, her body is aging. So the thing that we went back and forth about was to make sure that the body doesn't lie. The body, as that book is called, The Body Keeps the Score, and we wanted to make sure that her voice was actually keeping the truth solid, because your body, when I take like an old lady ballet class, and I think I'm so like, oh, Makarova going down, you look, and it's like, oh my God, I look like that TikTok where the old ladies are like doing that thing and people are giggling. Your body just shows you the limitations. And I think that in combination with Jess, you have to have your inner Tinkerbell alive, the inner elf alive. You can tell by people's eyes. I serve on a board with Vicky, and way before we cast this, I looked across and she has such a twinkle in her eye. I remember saying to these guys, Vicky Clark has a twinkle in her eye, and she's great. So she came in.
She's mischievous. As a human being, she's mischievous, which I think really serves her. It was interesting too, calibrating her voice with the part. And I wouldn't say it as a general rule of thumb, but for the most part, we reserve her older, slightly older sounding or wiser sounding soprano for moments when another character is actually hearing her. But her stuff that's more her subtext tends to be lighter and younger, because in her mind, that's how she sounds. That's how she feels. That's how she sounds. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like thorough rule of thumb, but that's sort of where we landed.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Amazing. If there's no other questions, thank you all again for being here and sharing your story and performing. So let's give a round of applause.